Hello, this is Lauren Brantley Books, and I'm here today with my review of The Rabbit Princess by R Chen. The Rabbit Princess begins with a princess named Annie and her brother, the Crown Prince Pika. They are two spoiled children of the Emperor who rules over this country with an iron fist. Annie especially is a spoiled brat and prone to fits of rage. Already at age 12, she has gone mad with her power. She has thrown countless people in the imperial dungeons, runs the castle staff ragged with her petty demands, and throws a fit if something doesn't go her way. One example early on we see of her immaturity is that the princess demands a cake for every meal. She won't accept anything but a special dragon fruit cake that the chef has to make for her daily. One day the chef can't get all the ingredients for her cake and has to substitute. When the princess finds out about this, she absolutely flips out. She throws a hissy fit and has the chef thrown into the dungeon, just as she has done to so many other people. Now the princess clearly gets her bad attitude from her father. It turns out her mother was actually a very sweet woman who was forced to marry the emperor. They had anything but a happy marriage, and eventually the mother took ill and died, leaving the children with only their father, the emperor. Annie idolizes her tyrant father and wants to be just like him. Pika, on the other hand, seems almost reluctant to be the next in line for the throne and takes more after his mother. He's still a spoiled brat, but much less so than his sister Annie. The plot gets started one day when the princess and her brother ride into town for some good old-fashioned kowtowing for the peasants. The princess absolutely laps up the attention she is getting from the kowtowing peasants, but things go awry when one of the peasants, an old woman, forgets to come out to kowtow her. The woman's young son yells at the princess and insults her, and the princess takes such offense that she has the boy arrested despite the old woman's pleas to let him be. This turns out to be a giant mistake for Annie and Pika. The old woman whose son they took turns out to be a witch, and the townfolk seeing the princess arrest the boy was the straw that broke the camel's back. The old woman organizes a rebellion against the monarchy and has the peasants march up to the castle to kill the emperor. They actually succeed. The emperor is captured and killed, and despite his best attempt to save his children, they are betrayed by someone who was meant to protect them and turned over to the peasants. The children are brought before the witch Annie crossed, and instead of killing them, she decides to curse them. The witch turns them into rabbits and dumps them in a faraway forest where there is nothing to keep them company but wild animals. After Annie and Pika get into their first fight the first night, Pika runs off, but he returns the next day with a new friend, a jerboa named Naso. Naso is actually the narrator of the entire story, and the story starts with Naso telling her granddaughter Osani the story of the Rabbit Princess. It was a bit jarring sometimes when Naso's commentary would interrupt the story, but overall having Naso as the narrator worked just fine. Naso helps Annie and Pika survive their first couple of nights in the wild, and she takes them to a temple where animals live under the protection of the panda spirit named Luca. In this world, spirits are animals who have ascended and become living gods. They guard the animals of the world, and there's a catch that only a spirit can kill another spirit. In the story, there are three main spirits: a crane spirit named Onensis, a panda spirit named Luca, and a tiger spirit named Moyen. Moyen is the antagonist of the story, and Moyen has ambitions to rule over all the animals in the world. He just wants power for the sake of power and wants to start by taking over the animals who are ruled by Luca. There's a threat of war between Luca and Moyen's forces, and Annie and Pika quickly become wrapped up in the drama. One thing that was confusing about this novel was that the descriptions of the animals and how they lived. It's unclear if the animals are supposed to be anthropomorphic or not, but there are several occasions in this book where it seems so. Animals described as living in houses, using weapons, farming, sewing, and doing all sorts of things that require hands and two legs. At the same time, these animals still hunt one another like normal animals do, so there's some kind of a confusion going on. I wish the descriptions of the animals had been more clear as to whether they're supposed to be anthropomorphic or not. As it is, only Annie herself is confirmed to be anthropomorphic, and that's because of the circumstances of her curse. We get several illustrations of characters in this book, and they are never depicted as anthropomorphic. If they're not supposed to be anthropomorphic, then it makes no sense that these animals can fight wars with swords, or farm rice, or build tree houses and temples. It didn't detract from my enjoyment of the book that much. Personally, I decided that these animals must be anthropomorphic to some degree for the story to work. The story itself does read a bit like a fairy tale, so it makes sense that some background elements are unexplained. Another major complaint I have with this story is for about 3/4 of it, it's not really Annie's story like the title and cover would have you believe. Instead, the story overwhelmingly focuses on Annie's brother Pika. Pika is a good, well-rounded character who grows through a nice arc through the story. I like seeing him grow from a self-centered prince to a hardened warrior willing to fight on the battlefield to defeat Mulligan's army. I don't see why this book wasn't just called The Rabbit Prince instead. It would have been a more accurate title considering about 3/4 of the book solely focuses on Pika. My only guess is they wanted to appeal to a female demographic more, so they made Annie the focus of the title and cover. Pika is a well-rounded character, and I did enjoy his arc. I just don't see why so much of the focus of the story was on his journey, as opposed to his sisters if this book is called The Rabbit Princess. The last quarter of the book quite abruptly switches to focus on Annie's journey instead of Pika's. We are told, not shown, most of her character development. There are about 2 pages where Annie is said to have suddenly become a dependable friend to the other animals and a martial arts expert. We are never shown any scene of her working alongside the animals and gaining their trust, nor are we given any scenes where Annie trains hard to become a martial arts master. We are just told in a matter of paragraphs that she is now a badass warrior and rebel. This is a huge disservice to the story. It felt extremely rushed and half-assed. Like, why show so much of Pika's development if Annie's just going to get rushed like this? I don't understand why we couldn't have taken the same amount of time we gave to Pika to Annie's character development. With good character development, it's so important to show, not tell. We need to see how every character beat further adds to the character's journey and development. There's no shortcut to showing character development, and summarizing the character's growth into a few paragraphs is just a huge disservice. I understand that there is a sequel to The Rabbit Princess, and hopefully we get to see more of Annie's character development play out in that. But as a standalone book, The Rabbit Princess has a really bad case of showing, not telling when it comes to the main character development. Overall, I will recommend The Rabbit Princess. It is an Asian-inspired fairy tale with a broad appeal. You just have to be aware for going in that the main character is pretty passive for most of the story, and not until the last quarter where her agency really ramps up. The Rabbit Princess is also a fairly short read at about 150 pages, so it's easy to get through. I definitely say check this out if you're into fairy tales. This is Lauren Brantley Books, and thank you so much for watching my review of The Rabbit Princess by R Chen. If you have any suggestions for what I should review next, please let me know in the comments below. Feel free to subscribe for more reviews from me, and also a like on this video goes a long way. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye!